Just give it a second. Let people join. You son of a bitch.
All right. Let's see. Okay, thank you to the producer James for setting up all the cameras and the mics and everything for me. Let's see if anyone joins this thing. It is an odd hour to be doing a live stream. People are probably at work.
Now right. So there's a delay.
Say again?
There is a delay. So now we're live.
Oh, okay, cool. Wow, 1 minute delay. Okay, cool. Well, don't really have anyone viewing yet, but let's just jump into it.
But yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, cool. Aiden is here. What's up, Aiden? Maybe give it like 2 minutes, see if anyone else joins. If not, I guess people can always watch this later if need be.
We can upload a VOD. We can just like have the full crank the volume.
Aiden, could you please let me know if you can hear me?
I think just we can arrange the.
Yeah, I just don't want to touch my arm. It's a little bit distracting.
That's fine.
Hey guys, let me know in the chat if you can all hear me. All three of you.
Can you open OBS?
Yeah, we got audio input capture. All good that side.
I think you're just gonna have to talk into the yellow. Like you wanna.
Testing. I don't know, but if someone has full volume that side. Oh yeah, I do hear you. Still a bit low though, but I think it will do. Okay, cool. Well, I'll try and speak a little bit louder. Might be difficult to keep consistent volume, but I'll try my best. This is my first live stream, so I'm a tiny bit nervous. Also, I'm sitting in Nathan's chair today. He's not here, so I thought I would take the big boy seat for today. Cool. I'm just going to get started. We don't have many viewers. Maybe people will watch it later if they want to jump in. Or of course, it'll be available to watch after the stream. So the point of today is basically just to show you some tips and tricks in Blender. Specifically, I found a cool method to make a heart shape in, I say 3 clicks, it's less than 10 clicks. I don't know if it's exactly 3 clicks, but it's just a few clicks. So yeah, it's a pretty neat trick I just discovered while playing around. Okay, so let's just start. Once we make the heart, I'll also maybe show you some practical examples of how you can use them in cool ways and do some effect or something. Alrighty, so let's just open Blender. We'll open a general tab. I will press the shortcut A and X to select and then delete everything, just so we can start fresh. Let me just go ahead and save this file quickly, just so you know, in case anything crashes. You know, sometimes when you're streaming, Blender gets a bit heavy. I don't know where things are saved on Nathan's computer, so we'll just save it to the desktop. Easy. Live stream hot thingy. Okay. What is? Cool. So let's get to it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to press Shift A to add a new curve object. Oh my gosh, he doesn't have the add-on installed. So of course we're going to have to go to Preferences, Add-ons, and type in Curve Extras, I think. Yeah, add curve extra objects, make sure that's enabled. Hit refresh just to make sure it installs, and you can go down here and say save preferences. It usually saves automatically if you just exit, but you know, we like to do things the safe way. So now, hopefully it's there. Yes, so you see how there's all these extra curve objects now. So This is pretty unconventional. I generally don't use any of these. I don't know why I ever tried, but anyways, we will add a rhomb, which I think is short for rhombus. What is a rhombus? It's kind of like a diamond shape. If you have a numpad, press 7 to get into your top view. So here's where the neat trick comes in, and how to make this heart shape in just a few clicks. So you want to select these two kind of, I guess, either side vertices. Make sure these tangent handles are selected as well, and press V, and basically that will give you all these handle type options. If you set that to automatic, what you'll see is basically it extends these tangent handles and gives the corners kind of more of a round shape. So of course you can go in and like manipulate the shape of this and stuff, but we won't for now. So then the next thing you want to do is you want to select this top point and these 2 points, make sure everything's selected, but you want to deselect the tangent handles of the top point, right? So now you're going to press the shortcut SY0. Oh, wait, something tweaked out. Okay, let me just start again for this one, because moving it around obviously did something wacky. Okay, remember rhomb, select these, plus its tangent handles, V, automatic, gives it that curvature. Now you want to select this, deselect these, and SY0, and what that does is basically aligns all of these to the same plane, and as you can see in just a few clicks we already have a heart shape. So yeah, that's about 3 clicks, maybe it's like 5, it's a few clicks. What I generally would like to do is probably just extend this down a little bit, just so it's not so compressed, I suppose. Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. So now what we can do is we can go over here into the object data properties. This will basically let you transform your curve. So go down to the geometry section, and under extrude you can basically give this curve shape some thickness. So as you see, the more I extrude, the more this kind of extends outwards. So why don't we say 0.3? That's good. And now we want to also give it a bit of a bevel so that these edges aren't completely sharp, because nothing in the real world really has like a completely sharp edge. There's always a tiny bit of a bevel. I'll probably make this something small, like 0.01. Yeah, I like that. It's still sharp, but there's a tiny bit of an edge. And we can also up the resolution. We'll leave it relatively low, like 16, just so it's not so choppy. And then over here, we can also up the resolution on the preview and the render. So yeah, we've got some nice resolution for this heart. Okay, so why do you need a heart? I don't know. I'm going to show you an example of an effect that I came up with this heart. Of course, the possibilities are endless. You can do whatever you want, really, with this shape. But let's say, for example, we want to do an effect where we basically take an image of a building and then kind of engrave this heart onto that building. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'll show you. We're going to use a method called UV camera projecting to basically project an image of the city onto geometry. You know what? It's easier to just show you. So step 1, I think, would be to convert this heart into a mesh shape, because remember, it's a curve object at the moment. So we want to say object convert to mesh, and as you can see now it has vertices. The geometry is pretty whack, but I think it'll be fine, because basically what we're going to do is we're going to use a Boolean modifier to inset the shape into the building and engrave it. I know that's a lot of words, but I'll just show you as we go along. So what we can do is basically, as you can see here, I have this image of the city. I took this on a cell phone, you know, not very high quality stuff by any stretch of the imagination. This is just the view from outside our office window. Usually there's actually a beautiful mountain behind these clouds, but we took this on a pretty somber day. Okay, so basically there's a couple things we need to set up in order for this to work correctly. We need a camera, first and foremost, in our scene that we can project the view of the city from. So we can go back into Blender and press Shift-A, add camera. And now you can view through the camera. Okay, obviously the heart is in the way. By the way, let's just rename this to heart, just keep everything organized, and let's just hide it from now. Okay, so here's the view of our camera. But obviously the aspect ratio of this doesn't match the aspect ratio of the original image. You see, this is more of a vertical image, whereas this is a horizontal aspect ratio. So what we can do is, if you're on Windows, if you're on Mac, sorry, don't know, But if you're on Windows, you can just right click and go down to properties and then details, and you can see the aspect of this, or the dimension of this, is 3000 by 4000 pixels. So we want our camera to have the exact same aspect dimensions as the original photo. So let's say 3000 by 4000. Oh, wait, 4000. So now you can see we have a vertical setup for the camera. By the way, you could halve this, divide by 2, and keep it in the same ratio if you don't want to go so big. But you know what, I'm going to keep it at the original aspect just for safety, and because why not? I like to make a habit of just pressing Control S every 3.5 seconds. Jokes, not that often, but yeah, I would just save as you go along. I also like to make iterations like V001, V002 as I go along, in case anything tweaks out, then you can always go back. Okay, so anyways, I'm rambling now. So the next thing we need to do is we need to basically set up our image as a background. So you can go into your camera properties with your camera selected, go down to, hey Norm, I love you too. That's my girlfriend in the chat. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, babe. So what you want to do is go down here and click on background images and add image. And we can open the image that we had. Now, unfortunately, I will have to find where Nathan keeps this stuff. Local disk C. Okay, you know what? For the purpose of this, let's just move it to the desktop. I don't know Nathan's computer. I don't want to fiddle around too much. Okay, this city building file we will move to the desktop. Okay, we made a copy. Cool. Let's go back. So we can open the image, go to the desktop. Here it is. We open it up. Now, as you can see, we have basically the image that I took as a background reference image. So now what we're going to do basically is we need geometry to project this image onto. So basically we need to make some loose geometry in the shape of this building. Let's say this is the building that we want to engrave the heart onto. So in like a real practical example, like if you were doing this for work or for a client, you'd probably want to use software like FSpy to kind of align things. But I'm lazy. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm just going to kind of do it by eye. By the way, this is tweaking out because our clipping distance is not far enough. I usually like to just set this to like 5 million. What's going on here? Let's move our camera back a little bit. Oh, the camera clipping distance also needs to be changed. Come on, what's going on? Camera, let's just move it back so we're not intersecting the geometry. Okay, this should be good. Where's our cube? Getting a little bit lost in 3D space here, it happens. Okay, so as I was saying, you'd probably want to use something like FSpy to match the perspective of the camera exactly, but I'm just going to do it by eye, you know, because I'm rebellious. I like to take a freehand approach every now and then. So we can go down here into the view properties and say camera to view, and that will basically let us shift the camera around. And we're going to do our best to align this cube to this building. Doesn't have to be perfect. Ideally, you'd want it to be, but for the purposes of this tutorial, it doesn't need to be. I mean, we're just trying to give you guys the idea. So you can kind of scale it, get it into position. So what I like to do is bring it down. Imagine that's like the floor plane. Just extend this up, and bada bing, bada boom, we have a building. Okay, let's actually just go to this back face here and extend it backwards as well, just so we have some more depth. Let's tweak the perspective a tiny bit more. So what you can do is even go into this object properties tab and go down to visibility, viewport display, and set it to wire. That way you can see through the object into the background. So look, I mean, that pretty much aligns. Like, the geometry can be quite loose for this this camera effect. But obviously in a real instance, you'd want to get this aligned like perfectly. Like if this is a real production, like you're not going to get away with freehanding it. Your director will kill you. Okay, so now let's turn wire back off so we can see this. So we go back to textured so we can see the geometry. Now the next step is basically to project this background image onto the geometry. So how do we do that? Well, we need to make an image texture. So basically we go down here, we set this to our shader editor, and we'll just select that and set a new material for it. Let's call it building picture. Also, try and be more consistent with your naming conventions. I'm, again, just freehanding it. So we press Shift A and add a new image, right? And then we can go to the desktop and select our image, boom, and then basically just put that into the base color. Actually, you know what? I don't, basically, now the shading is off because we don't have like a proper HDRI. So you'd also want to find an HDRI that somewhat matches your scene. I'll see if there's one on this computer, otherwise we'll just download one quickly. I'll show you cool places to get some HDRIs. But basically, the problem with this is this principled BSDF has a whole bunch of shading information, which we don't really want. We just want the image to look as it looks in its raw format. So instead of putting that into a principled BSDF, we'll plug it into just a diffuse BSDF. That way, the only properties are color and roughness. And we'll set the roughness up to 1. Let's just change the brightness of the background just for now.
You've got a question.
I've got a question. In the camera pixel size settings, you also have percentage. What is the difference? Oh, good question. So here, this percentage slider basically affects the render. So if in the viewport I'm working at 3000 by 4000, if I set this to 50%, then in my render it'll render out at a resolution of 1500 by 2000. So basically this just kind of controls the percentage of this number in the final render. Yeah, thank you for asking questions. Okay, we want to remember, turn camera to view off once you've got your perspective aligned, because you don't want to accidentally change the perspective now. Okay, so as you can see, we've projected the image onto this building, but it looks a bit whack. So there's two things. The one thing is this cube doesn't have enough geometry, and we also have to add a UV projection node. So firstly, let's add the geometry. So what you can do is you can tab into edit mode, press A to select everything, right click, and then subdivide. And for the purpose of this, let's subdivide like 50 times. That'll give us a nice amount of geometry. So now you can see this has been subdivided, and there's a lot more polys. Okay, next we want to go into our modifiers, and we want to add one called UV project. And what this is going to do is basically going to project this image from the perspective of the camera. So let's say UV project. Our UV map, we can just use the default UV map, and the object is the camera, because that is the object of the perspective we want to apply. So there you see it. Now if we turn off our background image in the camera, you see that basically the image has been projected onto this. Now one important thing I want you to note is this aspect is not always going to be correct. You see, if this is a different number, it kind of squashes the image. So the way to figure out this aspect is to take the resolution. Remember, the resolution of the background image was 3000 by 4000. And you basically want to take the first number divided by the second number. A little bit of maths. I hate maths. But this is just a little formula that works. Don't ask me why, it just does. So 3000 divided by 4000, that gives you an aspect of 1. So if it was 1920 by 1080, 1920 divided by 1080, it gives you an aspect of 1.778. But of course, this is just an aspect of 1, so we can leave it like that, and everything should be perfectly aligned. Okay, now we want to do the effect of actually engraving this heart into the building. So let's turn our heart icon back on. We can scale it down a little bit. So, sorry, the reason everything is above, I basically moved this down. I should have actually aligned this to the bottom of the floor plane, but you know, I was going fast, so we didn't. But yeah, you'd probably always want to use this grid as like your base floor plane. So what we can do is scale it down a little bit. We can say RX90 to rotate it by 90 degrees. Now, what we want to do is we want to inset this geometry. Oh, by the way, the reason this is stretched out on the side is because it's only going from the perspective of the camera. So from the camera's perspective, this is perfect. But as soon as you start moving and rotating it, you know, it's trying to wrap the image around it in a weird way. So you you're kind of locked into the perspective of the camera. You can do like subtle movements, but you don't want to overextend your camera movement too much. Okay, so let's scale this down. Let's say we just I feel like I'm repeating myself, sorry. We just want to engrave this into the building. So let's press 1 to get a front view. Oh, sorry, Control 1. Wait, okay, yeah, 1 is fine. We just want to kind of make this sort of centered. I'm freehanding it. Obviously, you can use your measurement tools and stuff to get this perfect. But yeah, are there any questions in the chat? No, cool. Glad you guys are following along. Okay, back to our camera perspective. Now, how do we engrave this heart? We're going to use something called a Boolean. And basically, what a Boolean does is it cuts one object out from another. So you're going to select your building geometry. You're going to go down here to Boolean, and then you're going to select the object that you want to cut out of it. So in that instance, it'll be the heart. So you can just use this eyedropper and select the heart object. And now if all goes according to plan, this should work. If you go into the Object Properties tab and set this to wire, you can see that we have a sort of engraved effect. And actually we can disable this heart, and you can see it's all engraved there. So this is just one example of like what you can use this for. And obviously, you know, you'd want to go back and like neaten this up a little bit, you know, because obviously you get some stretching and stuff. I wonder if we put the UV project underneath the Boolean. Yeah, so that works a little bit better, but there's some artifacts. So we can add a light to kind of give that engraving some shading. So now you can see if you add a light in here, you can kind of, where's my light object? Sorry, getting lost in 3D space again because it's all the way up here. You see it kind of defines these edges and lets you engrave. How do you make this smaller? Oh, you have to go into the light properties and, no, not that, change the radius. And we probably want to change the brightness and stuff as well. So there you can see it. We've engraved the heart. Now what you can do maybe is take this heart object and, you know, add a material or something to it. So you can take it, duplicate it, make sure it's enabled in the renders. We want to turn it back to textured mode so we can actually see it. Then let's move it back a bit. Let's turn the original one off. And now you can, let's say make it red, because that's a classic heart colorway. Let's move it back a little bit just so we can get that nice edge. You know, you want this to look somewhat engraved. So there you go, you have that edge. Then we can go and add a material for it, name this heart, and then yeah, you can kind of make that red, and now you have like a little love heart engraved in the building next door. Say now you want to make this extrusion deeper, because for example, if I move this back, you know, it kind of clips into the geometry. So what you can do is just take the original Boolean object, and this is very modular, so you can literally just move this back, and that makes the indentation deeper into the building. So now, yeah, if you look from the perspective of the camera, you move this heart object back, you know, you have more space to move it. You know, you can rearrange this light a little bit, so let's see, you can change the colors of it. I mean, you can be as artistic as you want, but basically the idea is now you kind of get the shadowing effect. Let's turn our world down just so you can see it a little bit more. You know, now you're actually seeing this sort of engraved effect. Now, obviously, you know, there's all these random like clipping issues, like that's going through there. So basically, if this was all I wanted to do to the building, I could basically just render this out and then like mask it out in the composite, just so we're compositing this section back over. That's a different story for another time. But you know, we can also tweak this material a little bit. Let's make it like slightly transmissive. And you know what, I like to work in cycles because it's a bit more realistic, especially for transmissive materials. You see, now we're really emphasizing the shadowing over here, and you can really see that it's actually engraved in there. And you know what, okay, for the sake of realism, we probably want to include an HDRI that matches the scene a little bit better. So let's see if we have any HDRIs on this PC. And what an HDRI is, it's basically a high quality image that will give global illumination to the scene. So look, sunset, we took this on a cloudy day. So you know, a sunset or a sunny global illumination isn't really gonna work. So what we can do is we can go up here to a website called Hdri Haven. It's actually called Poly Haven. They have an HDRI section. By the way, what's cool about this website is a lot of the contributors to the site are South African. Can't remember where you find that page, but yeah, they are South African, which is pretty cool. So you can go down here to HDRIs, and let's just search for one called clouds. So now we can find a cloudy day one that kind of matches our scene. Maybe let's say cloudy. Okay, for the purposes of this, this is probably fine. It's cloudy enough, right? We'll download a 4K version just so we have a nice image quality. And basically what we can do is just go into our shader editor. Instead of world, we go into, instead of object, we go into world. And now you can basically just drag and drop this HDRI. And just like that, oh wait, sorry, let's just remove this one. Plug this into the background color, and just like that, we have an HDRI that kind of matches our foggy day. So I mean, in a real world context, you probably want to get this lighting as close to the original as possible, especially if you're going to composite this back over later, because you want to make it look as realistic as possible. So what else can we do? Maybe, let's go. By the way, so now you're in the world shading. You want to go back to your object shading if you want to tweak this heart. So what if we wanted to make it like a little bit emissive? So the emission strength is on 1. Let's change the color of the emission to like a nice reddish. Turn the emission down to like 0.5. And then, yeah, you have an engraved heart. You can do this with text as well. Maybe let me show you that as well. So if we add a text object, and the process is exactly the same. So what if you want to say like, love Cape Town? So let's go here, tab into edit mode to manipulate your text. Type in, let's do all caps. Why not? I like caps. Oops, Cape Town. Then you can shrink this down. Let's set the, basically as you see, I'm scaling from the origin point. So if I wanted to scale from the center, I'd go object, set origin, origin to geometry, and that basically sets the origin point in the center, and that way it scales from like a central place the whole time. Okay, RX90 to rotate that 90 degrees. Now we can bring this down, put this here, align it with the building again, and like we did before with a curve object, we can extrude this in the object data properties. So go down to geometry, extrude it a bit, you know, bring it outwards, and then we obviously just want to bloody align it nicely. Go back to the perspective of the camera. And then again, we select this and we add another Boolean object. So basically add modifier, Boolean. Oh, before we add the Boolean modifier though, we do have to convert this to a mesh. So object, convert to mesh, and now you can see this has geometry, which is pretty neat. So now as your Boolean object, you select this text by eyedropping it. Remember, put this above the UV project so nothing tweaks out too much. Now you can just take this text and hide it, and you can see that's engraved in there too. So you could even add like an I Heart Cape Town thing. And I mean, I think this effect is really cool because basically you're using 3D to manipulate like a 2D photo that you've just taken. So it's like VFX compositing 101, and obviously you'd go back into your compositor of choice. I use After Effects and Nuke, you know, to tweak the colors and really make it match this background geometry. And you know, you just mask out this section and kind of layer it back over the original image. So why don't we go through one more practical example, because remember the whole thing was about this heart object. So what can we do? We can maybe make like a 3D emoji icon thing with it, I suppose. So why don't we do that? Let's go back to the live stream here, see what's up. Yeah, cool. So let's just duplicate this heart object just so we have it. So we'll put this in a new collection. So if you want this to be in its own collection or its own like little group, press M, and then you can say new collection, and we'll just call this heart geo. Geo is short for geometry. By the way, if I'm over explaining things, I am sorry. I don't know who's watching this, what your Blender level of expertise is. So if I'm putting things in very like simple layman's terms, I do apologize. So okay, we can just hide this thingy thing, and now we just have the heart icon. So let's make this more of like a glass material, you know, just for fun, and we can make it like a little emoji looking thing. So we can add a new glass BSDF, plug that to the surface. Let's make it like a red color, and now you can see it's got this transparency. So the world lighting is at 1, so we might want to bring that down. Remember, we're still using the cloud HDRI, so yeah. By the way, okay, since we're done with this whole effect, we can actually move the camera back up. I'd rather have everything above the ground plane, as I mentioned earlier, just because it's easier to keep track of, and you know, if I add a new object, it will add it to this point, so I don't have to move it down every time. So yeah, here you have a little heart emoji. We could put this in like a little glass case or something just for fun. Okay, this cube is huge, so we can just scale that down. Let's see. Okay, what I want to do is make it almost like a speech bubble with this heart inside of it, as if you're sending like a heart emoji. So we can go new, add a material to this. Let's also make this one a glass material. So now it's transparent. Oh, where is everything? Okay, everything is just super small, that's why I'm lost. Oh. Please bear in mind, I am using Nathan's computer, so things are a little bit crazy. Why can't you see through it? Probably because we want to go to settings and set this to like alpha blend or something. Or maybe oh, I know why. The index of refraction is probably a little bit too low. No, where's our heart icon? It's here. Oh, you know what? No, I don't know. That's the trouble with doing live streams. Sometimes things don't go according to plan. Yo, what's up, Thomas? My cousin is in the chat, guys. That's sick. Shot for tuning in, mate. So all the materials have kind of tweaked out. Don't know why. Sometimes you just want to pause and play again, see what's up. You know what? For now, let's just remove this HDRI and set this back to color. Let's just remove it. Now it's a solid color. Then we can just add our own light in the scene. Why don't we just make like a big area light? Okay, that is truly bizarre why the materials have kind of disappeared. You know, we are using Blender 3. I don't think we've updated in a while, so sometimes there are glitches. There's probably a reasonable explanation as to why this isn't working, but right now I cannot figure it out. Let's, but that is the thing about like Blender and 3D and stuff, is it's all problem solving. I run into technical errors like this all the time. I probably just clicked something that I wasn't supposed to, and it decided to shit the bed. There you go. Okay, it's back. So let's say we wanted to make this like a 3D speech bubble. So we can say SY to scale this in the Y axis. Then we can go just press numpad 1. Let's give this like a little tail. Sorry if I'm not saying all my shortcut keys as I go along. It's just like, you know, at some point you get so used to the shortcuts, you just kind of, it's muscle memory. So let's select these vertices. By the way, I pressed I use a shortcut to get into this icon, or this viewport shading mode, which lets you see through the geometry. So basically when I go like that, I can select the backside as well. So let's go back into one. By the way, I'm not the best at modeling, so if you have any other ways to model this in a better way, you can let me know in the comments. And then we can just kind of do that. And here's like a little speech bubble. If you want, you can press Control A, bevel everything, you know, just give it a little bit of roundness. And let's turn our heart icon back on. And yeah, I mean, obviously this isn't the neatest thing. I'm kind of just making it up as I go along. I would want to put more effort into this if this was a real example. Yo, I keep losing everything in the 3D space. You know what? Let's just scale everything up by pressing S and dragging. That way it won't be so small when I tab out of the camera. And for some reason everything's upside down, probably misclicked somewhere or other. You can just press R, X 180, and now it'll kind of be normal again. And you know why? It's because our camera is so close to the geometry. Yeah, this is what happens when you rush things. Things don't go according to plan. I feel like I'm going off the rails a little bit, oh my god. So you can just go into the object properties, not rotation, location, just kind of move this back so you can view things nicely. By the way, we still have our background image set, so don't forget to turn that off. Just go into the camera object data properties and uncheck that thing. And yeah, now you can just take this stuff, scale it down. Oh my goodness, what is happening? Oh, I still have the camera selected, so I just want to only select these objects, move it into frame. This glass material isn't working because the index of refraction is too high, I think. By the way, with glass materials, you usually want to come down into your shader settings and set your shading mode to something else. Turn on screen space refraction and screen space subsurface translucency. And yeah, this should work, but it's not. Sorry. But yeah, anyways, that's what I wanted to show you. The whole idea was to make a heart. So anyways, why don't we recap? what I wanted to show you at the end isn't working, but I'm sure you guys can find better ways to use this heart icon. But just to make the heart icon in a really quick way, let's just recap that quickly before we end the stream. Thank you to everyone for tuning in, by the way. But I hope you guys got the idea. Like, basically you can do whatever you want as soon as you have this heart shape. So what was the method again? We add a curve, a rhombus, and then we select these two at the ends. We press V to bring up your handle type options, and then you set that to Bezier to give it this sort of curvature around the edges. Then you select this top handle, select these two, and just hold Control and drag to deselect the tangent handles. Make sure the main vertex is still selected, then press S, Y, 0 to align it all to the same plane. And yeah, there you have your heart shape in just a few clicks. And then remember, you can go into here, extrude it to give it some depth, and give it a little bit of a bevel, just so it's more realistic. Yeah, that's about all I wanted to show you. The main purpose of it was to just show you how to make a heart really quickly. There's other tutorials on YouTube on how to make hearts. I've never seen one exactly using this method. If you guys have another method to make a heart in a really quick way, please let me know. Yeah, that's all I wanted to show you guys today. Sorry that last little example kind of tweaked out. It's like when you're doing things on the fly, it's sort of hard to concentrate. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you learned something. Camera projection, the UV projection method that I was showing you earlier, very heavily used in visual effects, especially in compositing. You know, sometimes you might just have a camera on a tripod, and then the director says, oh, we need to give the scene a little bit of movement. Then that's what you do. You basically build out the geometry of your scene, project the image onto it, and then you're free to move the camera. Obviously not too much, as I showed you. You will get some distortion around the edges. Yo, there's just so much to go through, because also, if you're doing a camera projection thing, you want to do it on an undistorted plate. What do I mean by that? Well, in photography, every lens has a little bit of distortion. So especially around the edges of your frame, things start bending a little bit, which means the lines aren't 100% straight. So in your compositor of choice, you basically want to, warp the image in such a way that it's straight first, and then you basically apply that lens distortion to your CG objects later on, so that it matches the camera and integrates it and makes it look like it's being filmed with a real camera. By the way, this is quite funny. These aren't even plugged in. I just use them to cancel out background noise. But yeah, anyways, sorry, I know I'm rambling about VFX and lens distortion and stuff now. It's not always necessary. Like, the distortion usually only happens around the edge of frame, and what we were doing was kind of in the center of the frame, so there wouldn't be that much distortion on it anyways. But it's always just a good thing to keep in mind. Like, there's a lot of subtle things that you'd want to add onto this in the compositing, just to make it like slightly more realistic. Maybe I can show you all that in a later live stream. Or maybe I should just pre-record the tutorials first, so things don't go south like they did with that little emoji example I wanted to give you. But yeah, anyways, that was a little crash course on how to make a heart in 3 clicks, more like 5 clicks, but anyways, we'll call it 3 because that makes it more clickbaity on YouTube. And yeah, a little introduction to camera projection and how you can, you know, map an image to CG objects and warp it in any way you like. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen on like Instagram and stuff, people often do effects where they like take a building and they flick it with their finger, and then the building like sways back and forth and like bends. That's all done with camera projection, because they map the original image to some geometry. And once you have that image mapped onto your geometry, you can basically warp the geometry or do whatever you want with it while maintaining the original image, which is really cool. It lets you do a lot of cool like effects with live action footage and images. You know, because if I wanted to build this all out in CG, it would be a nightmare. Like, imagine trying to recreate this texture, you know, with all these little nuances. You know, you can see some areas are darker than others. Why try and recreate that from scratch when you can literally just take the image and slap it onto the geometry? And it looks convincing enough. It's, yeah, a very heavily used method. So anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hope you learned something. I know I rambled quite a bit, but yeah, do what your heart desires, no pun intended, with this method to make this heart. You could even set up a particle system and make hundreds of hearts emit from an envelope, for example, if you want to do like a Valentine's Day render. I mean, okay, I'm sure you guys can think of more creative ways. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm going to end the stream here. Thank you guys for tuning in, and check you next time. How do we end the stream? I do not know. Is James around? James is the technical producer of all this video stuff, and he knows how to do it. But yeah, thanks guys.